Do not become an owner-operator unless you can live off of $52,000 a year. Today, I'm going to be talking about the importance of being able to live off of $52,000 a year as an owner-operator. And we're getting started right now. That the average owner-operator makes somewhere between $50,000 to $70,000 a year. That's the average. All right. Now that's a pretty big margin, 50 to 70,000, and there are people who do a lot better than that. But the average is somewhere between $50,000 to $70,000. For a company driver, the average is $63,000. So if you take that 70,000 on the more upper end of that average, and you take a company driver's earnings of $63,000, it's only about a $7,000 increase a year from being a company driver to owner operator, which is not bad, but is it really worth the headache? And that's something you have to take into consideration. A lot of owner operators struggle to meet ends meet. A lot of them struggle to meet ends meet because they were never really good at personal financing to begin with. If you are not good at managing your personal finances, do not become an owner operator. As a matter of fact, don't get into business at all. A lot of people go into business or become an owner operator because they think they're gonna make more money and they're gonna work less, when the opposite is actually true. When you become an owner operator or a business owner, for those first 5 years, most times, you are actually going to make less money and work more than we did as an employee. Why do I say it's important to be able to live off of only $52,000 a year if you're an owner operator? All right, let's say you start becoming an owner operator and you do really good your first year, or you don't do very good. You have to look at the average of over the next 10 years. What are your goals as an owner operator? If your goal is just to make more money, like than you were as a company driver, then stay a company driver and just increase your value. Maybe get into something more specialized, or now that you've got your experience up, go to a company that's paying more. There's other ways to increase your revenue, all right, as a truck driver versus just becoming an owner operator. Also, if you want to become an owner operator so that you can spend more time at home, or that you're not being micromanaged, the truth is, when you become an owner operator, you need to learn how to micromanage yourself, because if you don't, you won't be in business very long. 90% of first-time owner operators go out of business within their first 5 years. And that number is close for anybody who's starting any kind of business. What normally puts people out of business is undercapitalization, all right, not enough dedication, not enough discipline, and not being able to manage your cash flow. As a first-time owner operator, I recommend that you pay yourself a set salary or a lower salary than average, at least for your first couple of years, until you have enough experience and money and cash flow saved up. Making sure that you have enough money saved up for maintenance is one of the most important things, because that's going to be one of the things that puts you out of business, or if you have a high truck payment. Now, I recommend if you go out and buy a truck, you pay cash for it. However, as long as you can save up 40%, you should be good. I mean, if you go out and decide you want to get a $100,000 truck and you put $40,000 down, and you still have about $10,000 left over for when repairs happen, then you give yourself a better chance of making it to success. But before you become an owner operator, before you go out and buy a truck, make sure that you have your personal finances in order. All right, make sure that you have your personal finances in order. You shouldn't have any debt that exceeds more than 10% of your whatever your current income is. That's the main thing. And just make sure that you have at least 3 to 6 months of emergency funds saved up, so that way you can cover all of your bills for when and if things go wrong in trucking and you may not be able to have a cash flow enough to pay yourself. Being an owner operator is definitely not for the faint of heart. It comes with so many challenges as far as like managing your expenses and your cash flow, fuel, insurance, truck payment if you have one, maintenance, so many different things. If you're an owner operator, you should probably looking at around a 40% profit margin. If you gross $200,000 for the year, you should be able to theoretically net $80,000. Also, if being an owner operator is important to you and you understand that you're not going to make as much money as you did as a company driver up front, and you're looking at the long term, then being an owner operator could be for you. Being an owner operator means different things to different people. Like I said, if you're just in it just to make more money right out the gate, then it's probably not for you. You're going to be miserable, and you're probably going to go back to being a company driver real soon once you realize you were making more money and more consistent money as a company driver. Because there are going to be weeks where you might net $4,000, and there's going to be weeks where you net negative $1,000 or something like that. So you have to be able to manage that money. If you understand this as an owner operator and you realize that, well, you want to buy your time back. Let's say that you were a company driver, you've been a company driver for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and you've been on the road a lot. So you decide that you want to become an owner operator so that you can work towards being home more often. Again, for those first 3 to 4, 5 years, it's probably not going to be possible, right? But if you pay yourself a set salary, and that's why I go with $52,000, because there are going to be years when you make way more than that, and there's going to be years where you might only make $52,000. But if you pay yourself a set salary, it's going to make it easier for you to manage that money on those down years. And it's also going to afford you the opportunity to have more home time, especially if you're keeping your personal finances and living within your means. If you go out, you become a truck driver, and you increase your means because you started making more money as a company driver, and then you become an owner operator, you're in for a rude awakening. I'll give you an example. I pretty much pay myself $700 a week. Sometimes I will pay myself $1,000, but I pay myself $700 a week, and that's before taxes. I have an LLC with an S Corp set up, and I pay myself through payroll. So even though I am Smooth Operator Logistics, I pay myself as an employee on W-2. So that way I pay my taxes also as I'm going along. All right, so one of the things I do is, like, if I have a week where, let's say, after fuel and all of the Mercer deductions, I netted $3,000, or my settlement was $3,000. Just because just because your settlement was $3,000 does not mean that you actually net $3,000. So let's say my settlement is $3,000 for the week. I'll pay myself payroll $650. I don't have a truck payment, but maintenance account, I put a bare minimum of at least $500 a week to my maintenance account. Now, some people, you should really go by the miles, 25 cents per mile. But what I do is, like, if I ran 500 miles or if I ran 3,000 miles, I still put at least 500 in there. I pay the truck first before I pay myself. A lot of people will tell you not to do that, but to me, you'll stay in business a lot longer if you do that. Because if you say every week, oh, if I made $3,000, I'm gonna pay myself $2,000, and then you put $250 away for cash flow, then $750 for maintenance, or whatever the case might be. When you have an emergency or a major maintenance or breakdown, that money might not be there because you've paid yourself too much. All right, you want to work yourself up to that, but off jump, you want to pay yourself less. All right, and then maybe give yourself a raise as the years go on, or maybe give yourself more home time. All right, like, so what I do is I pay payroll, pay myself $650 a week, and then maintenance account, I put at least $500 in there. I put away $350 a week into my cash flow account. All right, let's see here, and then I put $100 a week into my tax account, and then tolls, I put $75 a week onto my Best Pass. Even if I'm not going to the Northeast or anywhere where there's tolls for that week, I still put $75 in there every week, so that way when I am on the Northeast, when I'm getting ate up by tolls, I don't get to that replenish amount to where they're replenishing like $300 at one time or something crazy like that. Okay, I have to kind of set up a set budget and see things come out, all right, evenly all the time. So that's the way I like to do things. Now, once I've done that, whatever is left over, I put the rest of that into the maintenance. So where I put at least $500 a week. So let's say I pay myself $650 and I put $350 into my cash flow. That leaves me, that's $1,000, right? And then I put to my tax account another $100, that's $1,100, and then tax account, or excuse me, tolls account, another $75. So let's just say $1,200, and I had a $3,000 week. So the remainder of that, what is that, $1,800? All right. So 1,800 of that is going to go to my maintenance account. All right. Now, with that being said, another thing I do is, let's say there's a week that I don't work, I still pay myself a set salary. And that's where that comes in at later on. You know, once you have that cash flow, you have that built up, you've got 10, 15, 20, $30,000 saved up into your maintenance account, you can also use that as just to pay yourself whenever you take time off. Obviously, you don't want to let it get too low, but I mean, let's say you have an emergency or you go on vacation, you can still pay yourself that set salary. Because if you pay yourself $2,000 one week, but then the next week you don't work, and now you don't pay yourself, what's the difference between paying yourself $2,000 one week and nothing the next week, or just paying yourself $1,000 every week? Follow what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's kind of the way I do things. If you are an experienced driver and have tips on ways for guys to budget and save money, we'd like to hear from you. Leave a comment below. If you'd like to see more videos about trucking and reasons why you should or should not be an owner-operator, then check out some more of these videos. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you gained something from this. As I always say, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Hard times don't last, hard truckers do, and last, but definitely not least. Stay smooth, my friends.